Happy March Patch Day, everyone. Welcome in. Let's hop right to it because we have a lot to talk about, including the change we have all basically been wanting and waiting for a while, to say the least right now. Elsa Bloodstone. So let's hop into it. She's now going to be a 3/3 that now hits the entire board again. We're back to basically OG version of Elsa with how she worked as well. So this is like a double buff return kind of sorta. Even though she's now a 3 cost, she gets back the most important part to her entire kit, which is applying the power before the card reveals. So for example, if you've tried playing her, I'm gonna use a extreme example here, right? They use the Beast example, but I like always thinking about Black Panther. He makes the most sense. Black Panther's played onto a lane with Elsa Bloodstone right now. What happens is Black Panther, who's a 5/4, will reveal, turn into a 5/8 because he doubles, and then Elsa Bloodstone adds on another 2 power, making him a total of 5/10. What she is now going back to is her old functionality, where you'll see the effect happen before the card flips, and then the on reveal takes place. So in that instance, Black Panther will go from a 5/4 up to a 5/6, then do his double up, so now he'll be a 5/12. The Beast one makes just as much sense. If you've tried to bounce Beast before with Elsa Bloodstone, Beast doesn't receive the power buff, but now we're gonna get that back. That to me is the more important part of this entire change, because that power being applied the proper way, especially on bounce focus style decks, does give her viability even at 3 cost in that style of deck. But I also want to notate the fact that she's getting all of her lanes back. She's now, look, they've learned from Luke Cage, they talked about it here, that we need some AoE style effects. And the most important one, that's why I have it underlined here, is the word each card you play to fill your side of the location. So not gonna be necessarily the whole perfect like Squirrel Girl fills it up, but Mysterio will. We're back to having that in all 3 lanes. So we're gonna have to test out new Elsa curves to see as a 3 cost how well she fits, especially as a 3/3. Who knows? But new Elsa Bloodstone is finally here. We can all breathe now. We've all been wanting it for quite some time. She's officially now here with us. Let's continue on. Let's go right into it and look at Miek, who is getting pretty much exactly what we all thought he was going to get, because they leaked this a couple of weeks ago. I want to say they went live with a bunch of text changes that were not supposed to go live on certain cards. This one, Miek, who is now going to be a when you discard a card, this gains +1 power and can move next turn. The agency over the move was the huge piece to it. And they fixed how it works with cards like, well, Dracula and Black Cat. He gains the power because a card gets discarded. So there's actual things now happening, which means Miek is technically going to get more power. And if you do a discard on, let's say, turn 5, you now get to choose where Miek goes on turn 6. So we're back to thinking about Storm, Lockout, Discard, especially now in the world of Proxima Midnight, who we'll talk about in a minute, not for those reasons though. Like, this is a really good change for Miek. This brings Miek to being, in my opinion, an official staple for Discard. I was back and forth on him because I hated losing that agency of where he was going to go, and clearly Second Dinner was upset about that as well. They were not happy with how that played out. They want the player to have that flexibility. Machine Gun Miek will be a discard deck to worry about. It really will. So get ready for the new Miek. I'm very excited about this one. I think you should be too. On the other hand, then there's Mantis, who's now a 2/2. She loses a power. However, now she's a whole new effect. Now, as an on reveal, if your opponent played any cards here this turn, copy one of them into your hand. So this is now a cheaper into the hand version of Leader, is the easiest way to describe how our effect is going to work. They use Venom as the perfect example here, where let's say Mantis is played on the same turn that Venom is played into that lane. Venom does his effect, they have priority. Venom eats it up, it's now a 317 Venom, right? Mantis will see that, target it, copy it, and now put a 317 Venom in your hand. So if you remembered the chaos that happened with Old Leader, now you're going to see that chaos very similarly happening again with Mantis. Do I think that this is going to make her an absolutely broken card? Absolutely not. I don't think that this is going to make her a really fantastic card. It's still an option for your Loki decks, but now with a little bit more oomph to it, where you might not need to Loki, depending on the timing and what card you're really going for. I see Mantis specifically as a conquest-focused card. Once you learn your opponent's deck, you start learning what their play patterns are going to be, you have a much better chance at targeting exactly where certain cards are most likely going to go. The biggest opponent to this that I think is going to be the most important is Mantis against Annihilus. That's going to be a huge piece to keep an eye out for. If we start seeing junk super rise again, I could actually see Mantis getting a lot of play in Conquest, because you're trying to get that specific card into your hand to completely flip it, everything back onto the other side of the battlefield. Mantis is going to be a niche card in certain types of Loki decks, but she will not supersede the new version of Cable. Cable is now back down to a 2-cost card, but now is a 2/3. So they brought him down with his exact same effect. He's now a 2/3 that draws a card from your opponent's deck. That's it, plain and simple. It's milling. It's taking a card from your opponent's deck. But they only did this because Mantis now has a completely different effect. So Cable was originally brought up because of some of the chaos that was happening with Loki, right? They were nerfing around Loki before they eventually got to Loki that way. Cable's got basically no play coming as of recent, and now as a 2/3, that's pretty beefy. I like that for Loki. I might see a lot more Cable now because of it, and it's gonna end up probably making a difference in the upper end of all of the ladders. So keep an eye out for Cable. But speaking of the difference in the top of the ladder. Oh, wow. They nerfed the Time Stone. Y'all, from Thanos, they full out nerfed the Time Stone. It is no longer +1 energy next turn and draw a card. It is now on reveal, draw a card and give it -1 cost. So remember that uncertainty you had prior about maybe do I run Psylocke or Jeff? It's basically Psylocke now, because you need that ramp, because they're specifically targeting the ramp in Thanos. They're saying it's such an issue and we need to control it. So much so that they're willing to take the Time Stone, do this change, and then maybe revisit older nerfs that may not have necessarily need to have happened. And they reference at the very end in the final sentence, perhaps Soul Stone took the heat for Time Stone too early. Now, I remember when they nerfed the Soul Stone, we were all asking about that card draw. We thought that was an issue. So there was no reason for it to be there because the effect was already incredibly powerful. And I still think that that probably needs to apply card draw-wise. However, with this Time Stone change, I can see exactly what Second Dinner's talking about. The idea that, sure, you go ahead and draw your cards, that's fine. But I don't know. Like, this one change in the Thanos stones is so heavy, especially now with Hope Summers existing, now with the changes that have happened to Lockjaw. Losing that energy as you want it is huge. Huge, huge, huge. Thanos is going to take a big step down in play rate. Not necessarily in win rate, because I do expect people to learn how to navigate around it, but maybe for the next week-ish, the Time Stone change will probably back people off of Thanos. Let the Thanos gods test out this new version with all these new cards, including Mockingbird, who's coming out, right? Let all of these changes now come into effect. Retest where Thanos sits just from this one card out of 18 cards in the deck change, and then decide how good it's actually going to be. But I honestly think out of a scale of 10 of how good a Thanos deck typically is, this one change will move that whole deck down 1 whole point. That's how big of a deal I honestly think it is. But let's move to the fun stuff. Let's move to M'Baku. Because M'Baku, I talked about Proxima Midnight earlier. M'Baku's basically jumping now like Proxima Midnight. Now there's targeting involved with where he goes, just like how Proxima, you can pinpoint, oh, she's going to land here, the lowest power location. They've added that condition to M'Baku. So he's not just gonna super win you that lane. Now he's just going to kind of maybe swing that final lane that you're just barely losing by. I don't know if this is necessarily the change that M'Baku needs to become relevant, but I like that they're trying. I think that this is important for M'Baku, who's a fun card. We have fun with him on stream. He's a cool card, but his power 4 effect is so incredibly low that I'm sad. I'm sad for M'Baku because I think that there's another effect that they could play into him, which would be pretty good. Which would be honestly really, really, really good. You make him a 1/4. At the end of the game, this jumps from your deck to your lowest power location. On reveal, lose half your power. So if he jumps out of the deck, he's a 1/4. But if you play him, he's only a 1/2. But then you can possibly play around that. There's ways you can buff him up. Maybe you go ahead and go down the line of Forge into M'Baku. Who knows? I don't know. But I think that there's something there. I think that M'Baku needs a little bit of love. This helps. I just don't see it necessarily breaking M'Baku, unlike what they're doing to Yondu. Because Yondu's still a 1/2, he's still the cheap destroy card, but now they're also implementing exactly that leaked ability, just like we saw with Miek. Now we see it with Yondu. The Yondu leaked ability, which is now live, is destroy the lowest cost card in your opponent's deck. And I love the description that the devs gave here. They really honed in on the idea of OG death and pre-null, essentially, how Yondu was really being used for those decks, for those destroy decks. Then null came around, and everybody liked how Yondu was working to get the random power and information. But nowadays, it's not really doing that. It's kind of a skipped over option for destroy. It's not the #1 card. You say, you know what I need in my destroy deck or in my null deck or in my death deck? Yondu. That's the one I'm looking for. So they need to kind of pinpoint exactly what he's doing a little more so because of the future. So what they're leaning towards is with this lowest cost card in your opponent's deck, now you're actually milling with targets. So when you play a card like Cable, for example, maybe you got rid of their little 1-cost Nova, and instead you got a bet because that was on the top of the deck, let's say. Now Cable draws from the opponent, and it's a higher chance, a higher percentage chance to pull their big, giant, beefy card. You know, pull their Infinite, pull their, Null, pull their whatever, right? So that, I think, is a great piece for Yondu in particular, especially given the future, and they allude to it here, that in the future, there's going to be a synergy to look out for, because right now, in all of the game modes, Yondu is pretty bare on the modes, right? He is really not being used on any of them. And if you caught that, you caught that. Now let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about the big one. This is the one that people want to know about. What the hell did they do to Leech? Look at this dude. He's now an on reveal again, but different. He's a 5/3 still, on reveal. Remove the text from each card with an on reveal ability in your opponent's hand. Okay, I have thoughts. A lot of them. But I'm gonna hone it down pretty easily, okay? First off, secondly, thirdly, and lastly, I need to shout out my fill-in co-host from a couple of weeks ago, Z, who came on to the podcast and said on the Beyond Infinite podcast that it feels like Second Dinner is always 2 months behind with certain things. And that's exactly how this feels. Leech 2 months ago would have loved this change. We would have welcomed this change back in January after the big, long, awful winter. Yeah, I would have welcomed this change then. But Leech's ability to now specifically target the on reveals, I'm not sure if that's exactly what we need. I don't know. I don't see this necessarily needing even to be ramped. You know, if it happens to pop out, it happens to pop out. But the creators are talking about it, and I kind of agree with them. One of the biggest things that Leech does is remove those ongoings. And now you're limiting exactly what he does as a 5/3. To me, removing all abilities as a 5-cost card justified his 3 power. Now to have it be an on reveal, so now it can be stopped by Cosmo, and now have it hit less cards as a 5-cost card, Leech doesn't make sense as a 5/3. He makes sense with a little more power to him or a little less cost to him with that ability. Because I get what they're doing there. They're trying to limit exactly what he does. And they talk about very specific cards. You know, Shadow King, very targeted. Kyera, very targeted. Echo and Mobius, very targeted, right? So Leech is trying to be the very targeted card, on reveal card that's hitting on reveals. But all of the cards I listed below, Echo, Mobius, Shadow King, Kyera, and Super Giant, they're all 4 cost and less. And I think that's the big thing that I disagree with this specific change. I know they're trying to target Shang-Chi and Legion and those final turn on reveal cards, even Hela specifically, Leech is still going to be affecting, which we always need some control for. However, I don't think that they're going to achieve the goal that they're looking for with a 5-cost 3 power version of this super narrow thing. Leech's playability is going to go absolutely through the toilet. And all of you who just got those leeched free Infinauts, you're the ones who are probably missing out more than anybody else. But you're already going to be missing out on it because less people are going to play Leech, which is, I know, the whole purpose of having a nerf come on through. But not in the sense that this should happen, because Leech should still have some kind of use case. But the way that they've built the use case, to me, does not make any kind of coherent sense. I am not on board with the Leech change, not because I don't want him changed, but because it's disproportionate to the effect itself, in my own personal opinion. So, with all of that said, let's move on to some of the other things, because there's a lot of cool other things that are coming out here, including in-client graveyard. Y'all, we finally have an in-client graveyard. You'll be able to, like you see on those trackers, you'll be able to see exactly what happened. You'll be able to look at your discarded cards. You'll be able to look at your opponent's destroyed cards, and etc. You can now click on the avatar. So there's actually a reason to tap your opponent's avatar outside of checking just how many cards are in their hand. Now you can actually go back and see, oh, wait a minute. What did Yondu destroy from me? Got it. Oh, it was here. This is absolutely huge for the mobile client, because the PC clients have a lot of trackers, right? There's 3 major ones right now. And one of the sponsors of this channel, Untapped.gg, it's the #1 reason I use their tracker, is to be able to see, what did I screw up here? What happened? What did I miss? Because I'm a creator. I'm looking at a live stream. I turn over here to grab my water and I miss what happened over here. Happens all the time, because I also have a very tiny attention span. But I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. Now on my phone, when I'm out and about, I'll be able to do that. And that, to me, is the huge thing here. This is a mobile-first game. We should have had something of this nature probably way longer ago. Way longer ago. But now, I think it honestly will probably help teach some people very specific mechanics about the game. The difference between destroying, copying, return to hand. They allude to it down at the bottom with the special note about Wolverine, Sabretooth, and Deadpool, right? You're going to see that now. So get ready for that, because you'll see it right in your own graveyard in your mobile client or in your PC client too. We're going to be testing it all on stream to see how it looks and feels too, but that specifically, to me, out of the entire patch, is probably the biggest win, because it's going to actually make it more competitive in the Marvel Snap landscape. because now there isn't an advantage to playing on PC in that aspect, that information-specific aspect. So keep an eye out for that. But there's more. Oh, but there is more. We finally are getting our custom borders. Now, let me make this verbiage very clear here, okay? It is custom borders. It is not build your own card. It is not build your own variant. It is custom borders, and that's a huge thing to delineate. So let's go over what does that actually look like. If you have at least one infinity split on a very specific card, and a total of 3 infinity splits on that specific card, you will be able to unlock custom border. And you'll be able to essentially revert back that border of that split variant. So, get very specific with me, right? Sunspot by Dan Hip, right? You have that one. You have it inked with gold crackle. You got a god split, right? Looks awesome. You try it on the gold border, you're not sure about it, you upgrade it to the yellow border, right? You get it to legendary. And then you decide, you know what, I liked it better with the gold border. Sorry, with the gray border, the common border. Right now, you can't go backwards. Now, with the custom border, because you've unlocked common and you've unlocked legendary, you'll be able to pinpoint, this is the one, this is the custom border I want for this split. Now, will you be able to take that split and put it, the 3D animation of legendary, on a gray border? No, you can't do that. They will not mix and match. A gray border will still be completely 2D. It will always be. You can't have a red border, the animated red border, but 2D animate. They're tied together. So that's product number 1. Product number 2 is at the current moment. Keywording here on this one. At the current moment, the variant version is directly associated with the variant split finish flare. So that sunspot that's inked with gold crackle we talked about is exclusively set to that. Only that split. Now, we do have it confirmed, and I'm proud to share this with you, that in the future, you will be able to do that as per Steven from Second Dinner. We can confirm that as we move to the future, you will be able to, and I quote, in a future release, we are going to make split combos by character as well, so you could also put another split combo that you have for that character on your new variant. So that inked sunspot with gold crackle, let's say you now get the Grecki sunspot, you'll be able to take that split in the future, not yet, and bring it to that one as I hit the microphone. So that's cool. So for now, this is where we're starting. We're getting there in the future. They've also confirmed that in the future, they're going to be adding more borders. And they've also confirmed that there's going to be even more splits coming to the game. And I'm excited to announce that with all of you here. From Steven from Second Dinner. I can't show screenshots because of NDA, but I can tell you all of that confirmed. So for now, we're starting with the custom border. That's phase 1 to all of this, but more and more of these effects and unique things are going to come to the game. This is a screenshot from a response in the team answers. If you want to take a look at it, go ahead and pause the video. Further explaining that in more detail, but I wanted to give it just a quick highlight as we move on to gold and undo and turn. The gold pass. We are getting a gold pass. We basically knew that. We saw that being data mined, and then the devs were all being queued on Twitter like, wow, that sounds like a good idea, but not confirming anything. Now it's confirmed, okay? We're getting a gold pass. You'll be able to purchase the gold pass. It gives you a chunk of gold, and then additional gold for every day for the next 30 days. This is a double factor here. I've played games with this before. Many games run this type of gold currency extra pass. This is incredibly smart. This is incredibly smart for the economy of the game, which is monetizing off of variants more than any other feature right now. So for me, because I'd pay for a lot of different features in this game, including more deck slots. Okay, second dinner, that VIP premium, you want to get that extra $5 a month? Give me more deck slots, but that's a topic for another cocktail. For now, I'll take a gold pass. And I can't wait to see what the full value of this ends up being, like how much per month for 30 days and how much gold that gets you long term. It's probably going to be the best value in the game. If I had to make a prediction, probably going to be the best value in the game without knowing anything. So keep an eye out for that. It's a great way to use your resources. Undo end turn. This is a big one for very competitive play. And this is a big one in general just for the entire community, but we see this a lot in the competitive aspect of things where somebody can rope you, so bring you all the way to the end of your turn. You've already submit your cards. You've hit end turn, and then they snap, but you've been stuck. So now, during that snap, you know how the time extends just that little bit more? During that time, you will have the option to undo your end turn at that moment, and then choose to retreat if you wish to. That is such a huge, 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 huge mechanic, and it limits the amount of people that can actually rope you, because now there's no benefit to waiting. There's no strategy. It's, okay, hopefully they don't click undo, rather than there's literally nothing you can do. And that's a big difference. And that, from a game mentality standpoint, sanity standpoint, there have been too many games where I wish I could retreat, but you feel like you're stuck because there's literally no way to back out of it because they manipulated you. Your opponent used the time and the game mechanics the wrong way, in a vile way, against you that you couldn't back out. We talked about this on the podcast as well, being able to raise and fold, check, call. You got to get the orders right? Right now, you only had the ability to do one of them. I check, your opponent raises, but you can't fold. That's how that felt. So now I'm very happy about undo end turn. Let's continue on. Let's talk about locations, because there have been some changes to them. Some really annoying locations, they're just increasing how rare they are. So this is a double-edged sword, right? You're gonna see Collapsed Mine, Great Portal, Lamentus 1, and all 11 of these on the board, on the screen right now, reduced in frequency, which is fine. I'm totally cool with that because they're a little bit more, aggressive locations, right? And I love how they specifically said that they're really looking at locations that also boost very specific archetypes like Destroy, because if you've ever played Shuri's Lab Destroy, that absolutely sucks to deal with. Or Kitty Pryde in the right deck with the Shuri's Lab, I mean, that's an instant retreat because there's just nothing you can do. So I like that they're targeting, and Hotel Inferno, it's getting a little annoying at this point. I like that they're targeting this in particular to say we need to back off certain locations, but the other edge of that sword is that your more commons will then be even more common. So the landscape of the game might feel a little bit different here. This also means KM Best and Snapman have a whole bunch of math to figure out now about the likelihood, with all of these new rarities involved, the likelihood of not seeing or seeing the same location in back-to-back games, because people still believe in location batching. Next up in the location side is the after the turn trigger. Now, if you've ever played a match with Starlit Citadel, the one that moves the locations all around the board on after turn 4, you've seen that sometimes it messes up the order because normally your locations are supposed to go left to right. Like if Bifrost is all the way on the far left, then Asgard is in the middle location, and then the last location, Starlit Citadel, Asgard should go first on the left, then Bifrost slides everything over because it's the middle location. You see what I'm saying? But it wasn't doing that. They realized that. They fixed that. That's the fast forward version of it, is it's going to change the order in which it happens. They very specifically call out Asgard because of the timing also on when those abilities happen with those cards. So locations and then cards should be the order in which you play. So Sunspot won't proc, and then Asgard chooses turn 4. It was all kind of mishmashed out of order in the wrong. It should always go locations left to right, then those extra card effects at the end of the turn, like Sunspot. They've fixed that consistency. We'll probably still find one or two of them just because the community always does, so be aware of that. And then they also happen to give a random boost to Subterranea because it's a boost for us, where it's no longer 5 rocks. Now it's just 4. Because I don't know about you, but I've done it. I've pulled all 5 rocks in 5 turns. Yeah, I'm happy about this change. Lastly, just a couple of quick little things about card fixes and other fixes that, and there's a whole list of these. I pulled these ones out in particular because they are ones that you probably have seen regularly that need to be called out. So card logic, right? Agatha, that timer, like if you have a District X game and Agatha is in your deck, the timer would run like it was an Agatha timer, even though you're playing it live because you haven't drawn Agatha. It's really annoying. They fixed that. Omega Red doing the final end of game check. We've seen this happen a couple of times. You saw it on Reddit get posted up a bunch too, where Omega Red's supposed to have his power reactivate late as an ongoing, but then it doesn't recalculate because of all the other end of game effects. It was very wonky, very rare, but it was happening. They fixed that one. Lastly, Absorbing Man now will actually copy the spell rather than Nico Minoru herself. So Absorbing Man from Nico does actually have a purpose rather than base level Nico Minoru. So the card logic and like where things are assigning, those are quick little ones. Also, the other bug fixes that I pulled out here. Yo, we're losing the little red dot. We're losing the little red dot. Resolved an issue that was causing the collection tab to show cards in a single file column when going from albums to cards. So that single line one that would pop up, that's part 1. That was annoying as hell. I had that on PC quite a few times. Really annoying. And secondly, the album rewards claimed in a previous client version should no longer appear as claimable in the new client version, also known as that a little annoying red dot if you've completed the album in the last client, the Dan Hip albums. Yeah, it's really annoying. I think it was the Dan Hip album, actually. But really annoying, that little red dot that no one can ever reclaim to get their Cosmo emote. Yeah, that's done now. Okay, so that's fixed. Spider Ham shouldn't crash the game anymore. Fingers crossed, hopefully. Ooh. And then lastly, the currently selected deck may not always be the deck in focus when opening deck selection. Y'all, this has been one of the biggest nuisances for me in the game. The idea that, oh, I click a deck on the desktop of this game, and then it brings me in that edit button to the deck builder, but then it doesn't open the deck that I actually clicked. It's like a random deck or the last deck I randomly was playing with in the deck builder. Really annoying, but they've also fixed that one too. And then believe me, there's a whole bunch more of these. A whole bunch more of these, but which ones stand out to you? And why is it Leech? And why is it Miek? At least to me it is. Those are mine. Which ones are yours? Thank you so much for enjoying this update here with the crazy patch here for March. We're going to be testing all of this live on stream. I hope you come join us for all of the craziness. Once again, if you like this type of content, hit that like and subscribe button down below, and I'll see y'all next time.